Today we'll be speaking about free will. Why was Egypt punished when God already ordained that the Jewish people are going to be slaves in Egypt? He told Abraham they're going to be slaves. So isn't Pharaoh and the Mitzrayim, they're only following orders. Just following orders, right? So why should they get punished? So how does free will work? And if God knows beforehand how we're going to choose, how do we really have free will? This is Mishnah Masechta Avot. The Rambam says that this Mishnah is a key to the entire Jewish religion. This Kleinchik Mishnah, how do you say Kleinchik in English? This little Mishnah, according to Maimonides, is the pillar of Judaism. What does the Mishnah say? This is from Avos Perek Gimel. Hakol tzafui v'reshus netuna. Everything is foreseen by God, and yet what? We have free will. Seems to be a paradox, right, Avram? If hakol tzafui, if everything is foreseen by God, if God knows how we're going to choose before we do it, and yet v'reshus netuna, and yet the Mishnah says that what? Every person has what? Free will. Maimonides says on this Mishnah, this is the Amod Shel Yahadut. Bechira Chafshis, free will, is the pillar of the entire Jewish religion. So the question is, if that's the case, if the pillar of the entire Jewish religion, last time I checked the Ani Mamon's Avraham, it's not there. Maimonides says that the belief in free will, the Mishnah says we all have free will, is a pillar of Jewish religion, Amud Shel Yahadut. So how come in the Ani Mamon's, the 13 principles of faith, Mindel, it's not there? Last time I checked, the belief in free will, if it's a pillar of Judaism, how come it's not in the Ani Mamon's?
I don't know.
There should be 14, only 13.
Yeah.
Right? Didn't the Rambam forget one?
No.
So Maimonides answers that question. He says that free will cannot be one of the 13. It's the pillar that all the other 13 rest on. Because if you didn't have free will, how's there a mitzvah to believe in God? How's there a mitzvah to believe in reward and punishment? How's there a mitzvah to believe in Tchiyat HaMeitim? How's there a mitzvah to believe in what? The coming of the Mashiach? If I don't have free will, right? Rabbi Foyle, if I don't have free will, then all the other 13 don't mean anything. So it can't be one of the 13, says Maimonides. That comes before. That's the pillar. If you don't have free will, then the other 13 don't work at all. If I'm a robot, then what? How could I believe in anything, or why should I get schar v'onish if I'm only a robot? So therefore, Maimonides says that what? That Bechira Chafshis is the Amud that the other 13 principles rest on. And the same idea, with this idea, the Chazon Ish answers a question, the mitzvah to live in Eretz Yisrael. The mitzvah to live in Eretz Yisrael, right? It's not one of the Tayyag mitzvot. The Rambam does not count it as one of the Tayyag mitzvot. So the question is why? Why not?
Oh, that's nice.
The question is why not? So the Chazon Ish says with the same idea, living in Israel, that comes before the Tayyag mitzvot. All of the Tayyag mitzvot are only meant to be kept where? In Israel. So therefore it can't be one of the Tayyag. Yishuv Eretz Yisrael is like Bechira Chafshis. It's the Amud of all the mitzvot. The mitzvahs are meant to be kept where? In Israel and not outside of Israel. So anyway, the Mishnah says, if you take a look at the side number 1, Hakol tzafui, everything is foreseen by God, and yet v'reshus netuna, and yet we have what? Free will. Seems to be a paradox. If God knows beforehand how I will choose, then how do I really have free will, right?
Right.
So the answer is, well, there are many answers to this question. Rav Aryeh Kaplan Zatzal gives one answer. He says, we're playing chess with the grandmaster of the universe. Did you ever play chess with the grandmaster of the universe? That's how he reconciles this stira. How do you say stira in English? This paradox in the Mishnah, contradiction. You play chess with the grandmaster of the universe. We are moving independently. But the grandmaster, what? He's controlling the game. I'm moving. I have free will. But the grandmaster of the universe, somehow he is what? Controlling the game. Okay, that's a simple answer. We'll get to more complicated answers as well. How do we know we have free? How does the Mishnah Chava know? How does the Mishnah know this? You know, everything in the oral Torah has to have middle of source. Where in the Mishnah? How does the Mishnah know that we have free will? So there's a pasuk in Devarim 30. If you look at the bottom of your page on side number 1, it's in my handwriting. Devarim 30 says, "Natati lefanecho." See, it's in quotes. You know, Yehuda? "Natati lefanecho habracha v'aklala." God says, "I give into you habracha v'aklala." What's the next word? Ubacharta b'chayim. Deuteronomy 30. Ubacharta b'chayim. God says, choose life. It's up to you, New York. It's up to you. Remember that? B'charta b'chayim. So according to my Maimonides, the entire Jewish religion stands on this pasuk. B'chira, b'charta b'chayim. God says, choose life. The choice is yours. And then God makes another incredible statement at the bottom of my page here, my handwriting. Mi yitain. God says, mi yitain. What would I give? V'hoya levavam. That their hearts, liyira oti, their hearts should fear me. V'lishmo et kol mitzvotai. That they should observe all of my mitzvot. Kol hayamim. All of the days. For my benefit, says God. L'man yitav lahem, v'levneim lo'olam. Deuteronomy 5. God says, mi yitain. What does mi yitain mean, Raphael? What would I give? Unkala says halavai. How do you say halavai in English? If only. God makes a wish. Elisheva, amazing. God makes a wish in Deuteronomy 5:26. What would I give, God said? I'd give away everything if only the Jewish people would fear me and observe all of my mitzvahs all their days. For whose benefit, Daniel? L'man yitav lahem v'levneim lo'olam. You're not doing me a favor.
Of course not.
God says you're doing yourself a favor. Do yourself a favor. Observe the Torah. It'll be good for you and your children. La'olam. What does la'olam mean? Forever. God makes a wish. Unkala says halavai. Halavai, halavai, halavai. Hakol b'dei shemayim. Chutz miyirat shemayim. Everything is in the hands of God except what? The fear of God. So God makes a wish. We should listen to him. Aviezer, does he get his wish? You win some, you lose some, right? I don't know. Does he get his wish all the time or not? What? It's up to us. It's up to us, right? So again, if God knows beforehand how we're going to choose, then how do we really have free will? So Maimonides is going to ask that question on side number 2. On side number 2, here the Rambam deals with the question of, in this week's Parsha, it looks like God takes away the free will of what? Of Pharaoh and the Egyptians. You're saying that free will is a principle, not just of Judaism. Every human being has free will, right? Otherwise, he's a robot. So how could it be that God takes away the free will of what? Of the Egyptians. And then he punishes them. It seems like he's playing with them. Is that fair? So the Rambam deals with it on side number 2. You see that, Yehuda? Can our free will defy God's will? What's the answer? Yes. That's why there's always a plan B and a plan C, right? So look at the Rambam, side number 2. This is the Rambam Hilchas Tshuva, Halacha Gimel. Even Aram? He's going to deal with the problem over here, how in the Parsha of the week, God seems to say that I will harden the heart of Pharaoh and the Mitzrayim. Is that fair? And why should they get punished afterwards? So Halacha Gimel, you see that on side 2? The Efsher, it's possible. Sheyechta Adam Chet Gadol. It's possible a person can commit one great sin, or Chatoyim Rabim, or many sins, Ad Sheyitein Hadin Lifnei Dayan Emet, until the Dayan Emet, how do you say that in English? The judge of truth decides Shehea Paraon Mizeh Achoteh Al Chatoyim Elu Sh'osam Tzayim Edatoi. Part of the punishment, if a person commits many sins, or one great sin, part of the punishment is shemonin mimenu hatshuva. that God denies from him the opportunity to what? And God will not allow him to do tshuva. Is that fair? In order he should die with a sin. And it doesn't only happen to non-Jews. Rambam brings from Yeshayahu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Amar Yedei Shayahu. God tells the prophet Isaiah, Hashmein Leva Amazeh. How do you say that in English? Hashmein, from the word shamen. Make fat. Make fat the heart of this people. V'oznav hachbeid. And make their ears verstoppt. How do you say that?
Stuffed up.
The ein of Hosha. And give them spiritual, not Cadillacs, spiritual cataracts. You hear what he's saying? Pen yira be'einov, perhaps they'll see with their eyes. U'ba'oznav yishma, and they'll hear with their ears. U'levav yovin, and they'll understand. V'shavan l'tshuva. V'rafalo, and they'll get healed. But these people, it's too late for them. It's too late now. It's amazing verse, Yehuda, in Isaiah 6. God is saying that the Jewish people are going to get clogged up spiritual arteries, or hardening of the spiritual arteries, or spiritual cataracts, not Cadillacs, where God will take away from them the opportunity to see clearly. And they want to do tshuva, and they're not able to, because they committed so many sins that God says it's too late for them. That's pretty frightening. That's very scary, right?
Yeah.
And he brings Isaiah 6, and he brings from Divrei Hayamim Yehuda v'cheinu Aimer. In Divrei Hayamim there's a pasuk who wrote Chronicles, Ezra. V'hi malivim malach elehim, those people that humiliate and embarrass the messengers of God. Who are the messengers of God?
Jewish people.
Or the Talmid HaChachamim, ubayzim devarav, and they despise his words, and they reject the nevuah, ad alois chamas Hashem ba'amo, until God will send Hamas on his people. That's what it says here. Billa, don't throw tomatoes at me. Ad alos chamas Hashem ba'amo, that God will send Hamas on his people. Ad lein marpeh, they'll have no cure, chas v'sholom. Kolomar, in other words, chatu b'rtzonam, the Jewish people in the days of Isaiah and the Divrei Hayom in days of Ezra sinned with b'rtzonam. What does b'rtzonam mean? Their free will. The Hirbul of Shoah, and they did so many sins until God decided these people have no what?
No share in the word.
No rishus to do tshuva. Shehu amarpeh, which tshuva is called the cure. What's the sickness? The sin, right, Ira? The sin is a sickness. The cure is what? The tshuva. These people are so sick that they don't deserve the cure, won't help them. Lefikach, therefore, now we get to the problem. Lefikach kosav b'Torah, in this week's parsha, v'chizakti et leiv paro. God says, Daniel, that I have strengthened and hardened the heart of Paro. I have given Paro spiritual cholesterol, or hardening of the arteries, as God said to the Jews in Isaiah's time. Is that fair? Yeah, why is it fair?
Because it's evil.
Why is it fair? Because Pharaoh, he sinned and his people sinned on their own. God didn't force them to sin. And him and his people, they did evil to the Jewish people living in their land. Let's plan the final solution. God didn't force him to do that. God never hardens the heart of a righteous person. It's always the heart of an Arafat, right? Or a Pharaoh. So the way you make your bed is the way you lie down with dogs, you wake up with fleas. That's what the Rambam is saying over here. These people chose to be wicked and evil, so therefore, Nosan Hadin, so the din, what does the din mean? The judgment, God's judgment decided, Limnoa HaTshuva Mimenu, to hold back tshuva, until God punishes them. He did it to the Jews too in Isaiah chapter 6.
Yeah.
God doesn't play favorites.
I know someone.
Therefore God hardened his heart because he chose that way, Chava. Right? The Mishnah says in Sota, in the way a person wants to go, that's the way he'll go. B'vakasha. Right?
Days of
God,
Noah.
what?
Days of Noah.
Days of Noah, that's right. So if that's the case, if God already hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he told Moses his heart is what? Hard. V'lama hoy shaleach lo biyad Moshe. So why does God waste Moses' time? And he keeps sending him, Shalach, let my people go and do tshuva. But he can't. God already told Moses, God already said, you will not send out the people. So what are you playing a game with him? God already said that this guy lost his free will. The mitzvah lost their free will. So why keep sending Moses again and again with what? With warning, with messages. They can't do tshuva anyway.
Because
Looks like it's a waste of time.
the Jews needed to see.
So let's see what Ramadi says. So Malka's saying very good. It's not to impress the mitzvah, it's to impress us. Beautiful. You mechaber to my great-great-grandfather, Bnei Yisachar. Oh, make my day. Bnei Yisachar says what you said, but I'll fine-tune it. If the Jews, the 10 Makos was not for Paroi, because they had no free will anyway. The 10 plagues was to impress us. Says Bnei Yisachar that every of the 10 plagues raised the Jewish people's morale and also their God consciousness. Yeah. If the Jewish people will not have witnessed the 10 plagues, they will not be able to receive the 10 commandments. So it's to impress us. Pharaoh and the people, they were stuck. They were mean machines. How do you say evil Knievel machines? It's to impress us, to raise our God awareness. Again, if the Jews would not have witnessed the 10 plagues, they would not be spiritually capable of receiving what? The 10 commandments. So that's a very good answer, but he gives another answer. 1 down, 69 to go. Okay, Maimonides gives another answer. Okay, you got a question? Aviezer, fire away. I'm all ears. What?
So Hashem obviously did it primarily for the Jews.
Right.
Secondly,
to impress us.
Also, could it be that...
So it was fair to make Pharaoh a patsy boy?
Yes, so it's fair.
Why is it fair? So why should I suffer? You know the story. You know Fiddler on the Roof, remember? Alms for the poor, alms for the poor. So the storekeeper says, here, Nachum, here's 1 kopek. The storekeeper. So the storekeeper says, 1 kopek. Last week, you gave me 2 kopeks. So the storekeeper said, Nachum, I had a bad week this week in the store. Right? Mm-hmm. So the beggar says, if you had a bad week, why should I suffer?
Ah.
You remember that line from Fiddle on the Roof? Yeah, go ahead.
The 10 plagues, everything
right.
that happened, wasn't it for absolutely everybody? First for the Jew and then for the
But the Mitzrayim couldn't help themselves anyway. So why strike them and warn them, asked Rambam, when they couldn't help themselves? God already said that you won't be able to let the people go because I took away your free will. So what's the idea? So Malka mentioned my great-great-grandpa Bnei Yisachar, but even Rambam will give another explanation of why.
He's finished. He might not be.
Go ahead.
Well,
I thought you finished. Are you finished?
No, sir.
Okay.
The Siddur says that there'll be a point where detestable idolatry will be eradicated from the world.
Okay.
So at this point, since Pharaoh was so haughty, so into himself,
right.
Hashem was showing to them that he's God and only he's God.
Yeah.
So it could be, and then when Yitro, when they run into Yitro further on in the park, that Yitro says, there's
now I know that there's only one God.
So this is for like the entire world. First for obviously
okay.
Israel, and then the whole world.
So you're saying good. You're saying that even though Pharaoh and the Mitzvah had no free will, but the UN still had free will. The EU, I mean.
What I'm saying is
to impress them. Right. That's what he says over here. Beautiful. Bueno. Malchus mechaven to the Yisachar, mechaven to the Rambam. Hey, make my day. You guys are cooking with gas. Avram is mechaven to the Rambam. Take a look what the Rambam says here. You mechaven to him, Aviezer. Make my day. Shenem v'atav avidecho. I'm reading the bottom here. Halacha Gimel. Yodati kiterem turim nei Hashem Lakim. That's exactly what the Rambam says. Beautiful, Aviezer. Well, I'm proud of you, man. The Rambam quotes Exodus 9. V'ulam. So why am I wasting your time, Moses, and why am I playing with Pharaoh and the Mitzrim? It's not for them. V'ulam ba v'zoisim araticha ba'avur haroischas koichi ulamant saper shmi b'chol haaretz. Exactly what you said. Exodus 9 says, God says, in order to demonstrate my awesome power and my fame, b'chol haaretz. What does b'chol haaretz mean? For the UN and the EU. Right? So you're right, Pharaoh and the Mitzrim couldn't help themselves. But it's to impress and to frighten the rest of the world. Kidei lohidia labo olam. To let, what does bo olam mean? To let the people of the world know. They're watching all this. They're reading the Egyptian Times, right? Or watching it on Google, WhatsApp. I mean, word gets around, even 3,300 years ago.
Yeah.
They had the Cairo Gazette.
CNN, Cairo News Network.
Right. Kidei loidia labo olam, to let the world know shebizman shemanei HaKadosh Baruch Hu tshuva lachoteh. Once God denies, people say, Pharaoh, you crazy? Let them out. You're getting smacked over and over again. Let him out already. But he just couldn't help himself. So this is to frighten the world and to demonstrate that don't cross a red line. You don't want to wind up like Pharaoh and the Mitzrim. That once a person crosses a red line into evil, eina yochol lo shuv, he's no longer able to what? To do tshuva. Elo yomis berishoy, he will die with his wickedness. She'asa batchila b'tzaynai. And the Rambam brings other examples of this. Slide number 2 on the left column. You have Yehuda v'chein Sichon. Sichon, the king of Cheshbon, remember? Lefi shavoynos hoyelo, he had many sins. This Chayman Tshuva, God took away the power to do tshuva from Sichon. In the book of Amidbar, Shenemar, it says in Devarim 2, Ki hiksha Hashem alechas ruchai, God hardened his spirit and his heart, just like he did to whom? To Paroi. This is 40 years later, he did it to Sichon. V'chein HaKnanim, in days of Joshua, the Canaanites, when Joshua conquered Canaan, Lefi Tavoseyem, because of their abominations, Mana mehem atshuva, God took away from them the possibility of tshuva, ad she'asu m'chalem Yisrael, until they went to war. Shenemar, it says in Joshua 11, Ki me'esh Hashem hoita, they really wanted to throw in the towel, the Canaanites. But God forced them to self-destruct. Ki me'et Hashem hoita, this came from Hashem, lechazek et libam, to strengthen their hearts, likwas ha-melchama, to go to war against Israel in the days of Leman achrimam, in order to what? To annihilate them, to cream them. Lachachrim, that's what comes to cream them. Ha 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 ha. Leman achrimam, to annihilate them. Wow, it's pretty scary. Avram, we see this in our time. At Camp David, Prime Minister Ehud Barak promised the whole candy store to Arafat. Take it all, Temple Mount, everything. And he what? He refused. It's not normal. Vaychazek Hashem et leiv Arafat. God saved us from ourselves. At Camp David, you can Google it, in 2000, Prime Minister Barak told Arafat, take whatever you want, it's yours, including Temple Mount. So Arafat said no. It's not normal. How could he say no? God took away his free will. God saved us from ourselves.
And isn't that why we never voted in labor ever again?
That's right. Now this frightening phenomenon happened in the days of Isaiah to the Jewish people. V'chein Yisrael b'mei Eliyahu. It also happened not just by Isaiah, where God took away the free will of the Jews. V'chein Yisrael b'mei Eliyahu. It also happened in the days of Eliyahu. Lefi shehirbo, lefshoamon, oisam tshuva. The Jews committed so many sins in the days of Elijah the prophet. God also took away from them the opportunity to do tshuva. Shenemar, it looks Kings 1, chapter 18. Shenema, Eliyahu Navi accuses God, Va'ata, and you, God, Hasibotas liba machranit. You, God, have made their hearts go backwards. Kolomar, in other words, there's a check there. You see that? Kolomar? Monatam hem tshuva. God, it's your fault. The Jews want to do tshuva. But you took away from them their free will. This is Elijah defending the Jewish people. Monatam hem tshuva. Monatam hem tshuva. A person comes so stuck in his ways that even if he wants to do tshuva, he just can't do it. So don't go there. Aviezer, beware, don't go there. That's why this is all written. Don't go there. All right? So, Eliyahu Navi is Malamed Chus on the Jews. What do you want from them? They want to do tshuva, you don't allow them to. You give them spiritual cataracts or spiritual hardening of the arteries.
But if it's the way they want to go, in a way, you know.
Okay, but now they want to turn back.
They want to do tshuva.
They want to do tshuva, but you get a lot of chances, like in baseball, 3 strikes and you're out. What?
They crossed the red
They crossed the red line.
Because they did.
Right? They crossed the red line. Kolomar, manata mehem tshuva. Eliyahu Navi accuses God. You know, prophets, they gave God, all of them, they gave God an argument, all of them. Eliyahu says, you deny the Jews to do tshuva. Nimtzei Saimer. God never decreed that Pharaoh and the Mitzrim should do evil to the Jews. And God never said to Sichain to sin. And God never told the Canaanites to be low-life abominators. And God never told the Jews to worship Avodah Zarah in the days of Eliyahu, in the days of Isaiah. All of them, they sinned what? On their own. The kulam nischayvu, and all of them now became guilty. That part of the punishment is, the greatest punishment is what? You can no longer do tshuva. That's pretty frightening. You can no longer do, you cross a red line, as Arafat did at Camp David, you can no longer do tshuva. That's very scary. Now, look at Halacha Dalet. This is really frightening. Halacha Dalet. Inyan zeh sha'alam at-tzadikim v'neviim b'tfilosam eis Hashem. The tzadikim and the prophets, they always daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu al derech emet, k'moi she'omer David. David HaMelech said, Hareini Hashem dachecha, Hashem, show me your ways, ahalech b'amitecha, let me walk in your truth. Kolomar, King David was afraid that after his sin with Bathsheba, what would happen, Billah? That he would be denied to do tshuva. King David was afraid in Tehillim 86, Avram, that after he sinned with Bathsheba, Kalayma al yimenuni chatai derech emet, don't allow my sins to prevent me from finding the true path. What's the true path? Tshuva.
Well, the prophet said it was a pretty serious thing.
Okay, shemimena eida dakacha, right? So King David is saying, don't allow my sins to prevent my doing tshuva. Allow me to continue to have free will. That even King David was afraid that he crossed a red line and he's no longer able to do tshuva. What a frightening message, Aviezer. We have to, before we reach the abyss, what's the word, the chasm? Chasm? We have to pull back and do tshuva before, but who knows where that red line is. Okay? So what's the Rambam saying over here? That what? That free will is a precious gift. A person can lose his free will, and that's part of the punishment. But God never takes away the free will of a righteous person. You chose to go that way, beware. Beware. Free will is a gift of Hashem. But a person can lose that gift if he acts like an animal. Animals have no free will. If a person lives like an animal, then he will lose his free will, which gives him his humanity. Hashem will take that gift away. But now we have to deal with another problem. Why punished Pharaoh in the first place? Wasn't he just following orders? Didn't God tell Abraham in Genesis 15, your kids will be enslaved for 400 years? So Rambam, you don't have it on your sheets, but I'll read it to you. This is Hilchos Tshuva chapter 6. Genesis 15. God decreed that the Mitzrim have to do evil to us. So what do you want from Pharaoh and the Mitzrim? They're just following orders. This is Maimonides' question. Wait for the answer, but think about the question. And then he asks another question. Why did the Jews get punished in the days of Isaiah and Eliyahu Novi? They worshipped Avodah Zarah. It says in Deuteronomy 31, God tells Moses, after you die, the Jewish people will get up and worship Avodah Zarah. God, I'm just following what you said. What do you want from me? Deuteronomy 31 says that the Jewish people are going to worship Avodah Zarah. So why punish the Mitzvah and why punish the Jews for just carrying out orders? This is the Rambam in Hilchos Tshuva chapter 6. He's playing the devil's advocate over here. Deuteronomy 31, God says, Moses, when you die, the Jewish people will stray and worship Avodah Zarah. So the Jews in the days of Isaiah, in the days of Eliyahu, why are you punishing me for? I'm just following what you said. I'm a good Jew. I looked at Deuteronomy 31, verse 16, and you said, God, that what? We're going to worship Getchkis. Following orders, God.
Wrong.
But that's what the Rambam is asking of Yosef.
Free will?
So what's the punchline? Lefi sheloi gozar al ish ploni hayadua. God never said that Yankel Shmerel will worship Avodah Zarah. God was speaking in general terms. God said the Mitzrim will enslave the Jews. He never said King Tut. He never said Tutankhamen. He never mentioned Ramses. God never decreed on a specific person. Each one of those people that worshipped Avodah Zarah or did evil to the Jews, they did it on their own. God never took away nobody's free will yet. On yet. You hear? God is speaking in general terms. Jews will worship Avodah Zarah. Certain mitzvahs will enslave the Jews, but it didn't have to be Tutankhamen. It didn't have to be Ramesses or Murnapath. Right. Or what's her name? Cleopatra. Right? So therefore, a person still has free will. And the Rambam goes on, and therefore the mitzvah, each one of the mitzvah that did evil to the Jews, he only did it because he wanted to. If he didn't want to, he didn't have to do it. He still had free will. God never decreed on nobody, but God is speaking in general terms. And then he winds up, Ein koach ba'adam leida ech yeda kodesh baruch hu asilios. Again, he comes back to this idea, no human being can fathom, how could I really have free will? If God knows beforehand how I'm going to choose, how could I choose otherwise? I'm standing outside of a McDonald's joint, and I smell the cheeseburger, the cheese and the meat cooking, and I'm debating, should I go in or shouldn't I go in? If he already knows, he has foreknowledge, if he already knows I'm going to go in or not, so how can I what?
How can you sin in the first place?
How could I go in? How do I really have free will? If he knows beforehand. Maimonides says, if Hashem knows before, so where's my free will? He says, this answer, there's no human answer. Right? Ein koach ba'adam, there's no, our mental capacity is not what? Set up to know how God knows beforehand, and yet I still have what? Free will. As the Mishnah says, no human being can what? Understand it, but it's a given that even though God knows beforehand how I'm going to choose, it does not interfere with what? With my free will. As Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan Zatzal said, you're playing chess with what? With the grandmaster of the universe. So a chess player, you ever play with a grandmaster? You're moving independently, right? But somehow he's controlling the game, yes?
But doesn't God says that the same thing to one of the prophets, I'm not sure which one, about Babylon.
Go ahead.
That Babylon,
will be the rod of my anger. That's right.
But they exceeded what he wanted to do, what he wanted. They went, they exceeded.
But again, God never said this Babylonian. God is saying that Babylon will be a rod of my anger. But not, again,
But they don't exist anymore.
But
because he said, you exceeded what I wanted to do, and now you're going to be gone.
okay, but Rambam doesn't give this answer. He just says that it was. The Rambam doesn't give this answer. The Ravad gives this answer, Raphael. But Maimonides, he sticks with God never mentioned anybody's name. Didn't mention Yankel Shmerel will worship Getchkis. Didn't mention Tutankhamun will enslave the Jews. God is speaking in general terms. And each person, if he didn't want to do evil, he had free will at this point. He still had free point, right? God was not Geiza Ish Yadua. He didn't mention any names. He's speaking in general. Yes?
Didn't you once say that the problem is that Hitler and Paro took it too far?
That's what Raphael said. That's the Ravat Shita. That's the Ravat Shita, right? But the Rambam is not going with that. God never mentioned Adolf Hitler, right? Never mentioned a Pacific Nazi. They did it for their own wishes.
He mentioned the nations.
The nations, but it doesn't have to be me. I don't have to be the bad guy. You have free will to do the right thing, right? You have the free will to do the right thing. He's speaking in general, whether it's Edom or whether it's what? Germany or whether it's Babylon. No names are mentioned. God is speaking in general, and each person still at this point still have free will to do the right thing, right?
Did you mention Nebuchadnezzar as well?
What?
I'm not sure if you mentioned Nebuchadnezzar.
He mentioned the Nebuchadnezzar, right?
Right.
But he didn't mention anybody else. Nebuchadnezzar, that's the exception. He mentioned him, but only him. But now the Ralbag has a whole and tremendous insight into this. If Hashem knows beforehand how I'll choose, so where's my really free will? Maimonides says that this question has no human answer. But the Ralbag comes to the rescue. Remember the cavalry? The Ralbag, not the Rabbi Ralbag who lives in Flatbush, but in the year 1200 there was a great Rishon, his name was the Ralbag, and a Kabbalist, and he comes to the rescue to answer this question. He will what? Ask another. We read at the Akedat Yitzchak, God tells Abraham, take your son and kill him, right? Then he stops him, and then God says, Ata yadati kirei Elohim ata. Now I know, Abraham, that you are what? A God-fearing man. Say what? That's what the text says. Now I know that you're a God-fearing man. And before the test, God didn't know?
Yes, he was.
So how come he says, now I know? Ata yadati. Now I know you're a God-fearing man. You passed the test. God says, I was nervous. But now I know that you passed. What do you mean now I know? That's what?
He demonstrated it.
What do you mean now I know?
Now he knows because it was demonstrated.
But didn't he know yesterday?
No, but it wasn't demonstrated.
Okay, so what do you say now I know? She said, well, I knew from yesterday you're going to pass today.
No, now we know because...
Good, but the text doesn't say that, Shirley. God says, now I know. Right? Rashi is bothered, and Rashi said what Shirley said. Now the world knows. Now the world knows. But the text don't say that. Hello? Text says, I know. Rashi says, now the world knows why I'm so proud of you. But the text doesn't say that. Text says, God says, now I know. Lillian, what's going on? I'm a text man, right?
But what you're saying is
Yes.
Avram, is that God asked Avram to do this for him then?
For whom?
For God only and not for the world. Because
Well, it's written up in the Chumash. Everybody knows. But Rashi says what Shirley said. Now everybody knows what kind of great God-fearing man you are and why you deserve my love. To demonstrate to the world. So God should have said that. Now the world knows. Hakmid says, Ato Yadati. Should have said, Atem Heim Yodim. God knows Hebrew, right? Ulpan 103. Right, Chava?
So
Tell it like it is.
So what's the answer? Now I know. He knew beforehand, obviously.
So Hakmid, now I know.
Yeah, so what's the answer?
So says the Ralbag. You're sitting down, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Ralbag says as follows. All the Kabbalists agree, how did God create the universe? Tzimtzum.
Drawing.
How could God, everything is God. How could anything exist? He is all. He is everything. So how could there be an amoeba, let alone a human being, exist? How could there be space when God is everything? So the Kabbalists all say that in order to create the universe, God, Kavayachal, withdrew into himself. Give me space.
Okay.
That's what's called outer space.
Right.
In order to make space for the universe, Kavayachal, God restricted himself, or Kavayachal limited himself. The Kabbalistic term is Tzimtzum. Because otherwise there couldn't be anything. He is everything. So make room for the universe. So God, Kavayachal, pulled into himself to give me space.
He withdrew his...
He withdrew.
he withdrew
Constricted, limited, whatever you want to say, Kavayachal, to give me space. Okay, all Kabbalists agree. The Rabbi takes this a step further. I don't know if it's a radical idea, but he says this as follows. God loves man so much, in order, Ira, not to interfere with my free will, he also practices tzimtzum with his foreknowledge.
Yeah.
So God could say, yes, now I know, Abraham, you're a God-fearing man. I didn't want to know yesterday. I didn't want to know yesterday.
Hashem did not want to know.
Because if I knew beforehand, then how could you surprise me? How could I have nachas from you? If I knew beforehand, then... So God loves the mensch, how do you say it in English? The human being so much that he's willing to practice tzimtzum not to interfere with my free will. You have this radical idea? So God can say to Abraham, now I know you're a God-fearing man. Yesterday I didn't want to know. I did tzimtzum not to interfere with your free will. How much God loves the human being. That he's willing to withdraw and put a screen, Kavayachal. I don't want to know. Isn't that? And this idea goes so far. Let me show you how far this idea goes. You're sitting down, Shalom. By Sodom, remember Abraham is arguing with God by Sodom. If there'll be 50 people, there'll be 40 people. Abraham says if, because he doesn't know. What does God answer? Look at the text, you'll freak out. Look at the text. God says, if there's 50 people there, I won't destroy the city. Then God said, if there's 40 people there. Now Abraham can say if. Who said if is a stiff? But how could God say, Mindel, to Abraham, he's speaking the dialogue there. God said, if there's 50 people, I won't destroy. And if what? There's 40 people, I won't destroy. And if there's 30, doesn't God know? What's he saying if?
Yeah.
And in this week's parsha we read yesterday, Raphael, God gives Moses a few signs, right? He gives him the sign where the blood turns to water, his hand turns what? And the stick turns into a snake. Look at the text. God says if they won't listen to the first sign, then you give them the second sign. If they don't listen to the second sign, what do you mean if? Doesn't God know whether they'll listen to the first sign or not? How come he says im? He keeps saying im.
It's rhetorical. He's teaching him how to do
It is
it.
free will.
1 minute. How could God say, Abraham could say if. But how could God say to Abraham, if there's 40 people, I won't destroy. If there's 30 people, I won't destroy. If there's 20, what's if? Doesn't he know for sure? And how could he tell Moses, if they won't listen to the first sign, then do the second sign. If they won't listen to the second sign, what do you mean if? Then give them the third sign with the hand turning into a line. What do you mean if?
He's just instructing him how to do it.
So why say if? Says the Ralbag. This is the answer. God does not want to interfere with human beings' free will. So therefore he could say if. Surprise me. I don't want to know. It's radical, but the Ralbag answers this. And with this, it answers many, many questions as we just posed. How could God say if?
Is that the same as Hester upon him?
Is that the same as Hester upon him? Similar, but it's not the same.
Not the same.
It's similar, not the same. The word is tzimtzum. Tzimtzum, which means in English you need like 6 words: restricting, pulling back, limiting, withdrawing, to give me space.
Not turning your face.
No, that's something else. No. To give a human being total free will, not to interfere. Because if I want to look beforehand, you really don't have free will.
But if you turn your face, you don't...
Hester Punim, that's the Holocaust. Hester Punim is negative. This is a positive. Hester Punim is when the Jewish people sin and God looks away in Auschwitz. That's a terrible... But here it's a positive, that God loves the mensch so much that he's willing to limit himself, Kavayachol, not to interfere with my free will.
Not only a Holocaust, it's 2,000 years of exile. I mean, it's
Okay.
not only specific to the Holocaust.
Nachon. And this answers something amazing. The passage we read yesterday, Malka, God says the Jewish people will believe and listen to you. What does Moses say? They won't. Hello? I hope you were listening to yesterday's reading.
Oh, yeah.
God says to Moses, the people will listen to you and believe. What does Moshe Rabbeinu say after that? Lo yami, they won't listen. Hey, Moses, hello, take a pill and lie down. God just told you what?
You're going to listen.
They'll listen and believe. And he turned, look at the text, it's amazing. And he says, God, forget about it. They won't listen and believe. Hello? So the same idea, says Rabbi. God, you can't say they'll listen and believe, because that goes against your principle of tzimtzum. You can't tell me they'll believe and listen, because you don't want to know. I know them better. They won't listen. You're going against your own principle of tzimtzum. Without the Rabbi, we're really lost. How could holy Moses contradict God? God said they'll listen and believe, and he says forget about it, they won't listen and believe. And God doesn't fire him.
Right.
That's pretty incredible. Look at the text we read yesterday. So the Rabbi says, this is the idea. Moshe says, I know you do tzimtzum, so you cannot tell me they'll believe and listen. You're not going to go against the way you set up the world. And I know they won't. But this is the way the Rabbi answers this question of how my free will does not interfere with Paro's free will. Again, the first 5 makas, Paro still had free will. It says, V'chazek leiv Paroi. Only after the 5th plague does it say what, Aviezer? Chazek Hashem et leiv Paroi. Right? The first 5 plagues, Pharaoh still had free will. After the 5th plague, he lost it.
What did he have?
He had free will.
No,
After the 5th plague, it says, V'chazek Hashem et leiv Paro. God, he lost it. Rashi points out that the first 5 plagues, it just says, V'chazik leiv paroi. It says he himself hardened his heart. Wow. Only after plague number 5, it says, V'chazik Hashem et leiv paroi. So you see that every person has a magic red line. That once he crosses that red line, there is what? There is no turning back. And that was the whole idea, Yonah. Why didn't Yonah want to go to Nineveh? Shalom.
Because he was afraid they would do true.
He is saying to God, they crossed the red line a long time ago. These wicked Ninevites, they're long gone. How could they do tshuva, God? You're going against your own... the way I gauge them, he says, those wicked, low-life Ninevites, they long went past over the cliff. Why are you still giving the opportunity to what? To do tshuva. That's why he ran. Right? So God says, listen, I know better. I know they didn't reach that red line yet. Don't tell me. Only God can gauge what's the red line. Yonah thought they had passed that red line and therefore refused to go. God says, I know they didn't reach that red line yet. And God was right because they did do tshuva. The Ninevites did do tshuva. It's incredible. Right?
But also, didn't he not want Israel to be embarrassed?
That's another reason, because he knew the Jews are not doing tshuva, and they will reflect negatively on Am Yisrael.
Yes.
Right? So therefore, he what? Also, he was afraid to be accused of being a false prophet, because he said in 40 days, Nineveh's Hiroshima. Remember he said that? He didn't say maybe. He said 40 days, right? So they're going to do tshuva, and it won't happen. They'll accuse him of being a false prophet. So that's another reason he what? He ran. But what do we see from Yonah's running? Aviezer, nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Or you can run, but you can't hide from the board, right? So God didn't fire him either. But you see, all of the prophets gave God a hard time. All of them. They all argued with God. Moses, the end of the passage we read yesterday, says, Lama Riyosha Lama Zeh. Why did you do evil to this people? This is Moses, the greatest prophet who ever lived, talking to Hashem. Lama Riyosha Lama Zeh. Why have you done evil to the people? Why have you sent me? Huh? This is the greatest prophet who ever lived. And God didn't fire him. God says, why have you done, Moses says, why have you done such evil to the people? Why have you sent me? That's pretty incredible. What? That Moses complains. And Moses argues with Hashem. All of the prophets argued with Hashem. Take a look at all of the 48 prophets in Tanakh. Every one of them, Abiezer, argued with God. And none of them got fired. Isn't that strange? Yeah. Looks like God loves a good argument.
Healthy relationship.
What? It's a healthy relationship. That's right. When you love somebody, you can what? Speak. You can speak
freely.
Speak freely. Right? You love somebody, speak freely. God, I love you madly. Why are you doing this? I don't think it's right. You gave me a brain. Right? God doesn't want no yes men. Yes, boss. Yes. It's amazing. All of the prophets in Tanakh, check it out. All 48, Lillian, they all argued with Hashem.
Even Nehemiah?
What? Yirmiyahu, look at how he speaks to Hashem. All of them. Because when you really love somebody, you can what? Speak freely. Exactly. And since the prophets were madly in love with the one above, they can speak freely. That's amazing. Now let me ask you a question. Hakol Tovah. Whatever God does, what? Is good, right? Hakol Tovah. Rabbi Kiva knew it. Moses didn't know it. Hakol Tovah. Gamzul Tovah, Gamzul Tovah, Gamzul Tovah. It's all for the good, right? So what's the answer? Gamzul Tovah. So what's the answer? Question is, if Rabbi Kiva knew Gamzul Tovah, that everything God does is what? For the good. Right? So the greatest prophet who ever lived didn't know what Rabbi Kiva knows. What?
Not in the beginning. I don't think he knew.
He didn't know?
I don't think
So how could he say, how could you do evil? Didn't he know Rabbi Kiva is going to say Gamzul Tovah? It's all for the best. Everything is good.
He wanted to understand.
But in theory, yes. But when you're physically going through 40 years in the desert with the Jewish people,
So the answer is as follows. The answer is as follows. Remember, Moshe was not in the slime pits. Remember, the Levites were protected clergy. Remember? Mm-hmm. They were not. So Moses and the Levites were not suffering. When a person is okay and other people are suffering, then you complain. You don't say Gamzul Tovah. On somebody else's tzarus, you don't say Gamzul Tovah. When the person is suffering himself, then he's supposed to say Gamzul Tovah. I don't understand what you're doing, but I accept it. But when the person is himself okay, but other people are suffering, like the Jews in Egypt were suffering terribly, then you don't say Gamzul Tovah. Then you complain and you argue. That's the difference. Rabbi Kiva was speaking about himself. On tzaris layaleinu Gamzul Tovah, even though I don't understand it. But if other people are suffering, then you don't say Gamzul Tovah. Then you're supposed to complain and argue with Hashem. And that's the difference.